Daniel from UK Lawyers for Israel, Daniel Berg. We've just been down the Philadelphia corridor. One of the things that we've seen from the IDF is that as drones are sent into houses to look for IEDs, almost all houses had very large bombs inside, with cameras linked to the properties underground, so as soon as an IDF soldier goes in, they can destroy the house with the IDF soldiers in. So the IDF, in those circumstances, are destroying the houses rather than risk soldiers' lives, which is of course absolutely proportionate and lawful under international law.
Hi everyone, this is Chris Ryan. I spent 10 years in the SAS. I've just completed a week with the military expert panel. We've come through Gaza and we're assessing everything and seeing how the guys are working, and it's really impressive. I was really open-minded in terms of what I was going to view, and the trouble is there's a lot of information being thrown around about what happened last year on October 7th, and when I was asked to go over as part of a military delegation, it was more out of interest in seeing actually how what happened and how it unfolded, and also how the IDF reacted to those horrendous attacks. On day one, I was shown all the video clips that had been taken from security cameras, from cameras outside of, say, the kibbutz, phone footage that the Hamas terrorists had taken whilst committing the atrocities. The footage was a combination of security cameras from maybe the kibbutzes, from street cameras, down to the imagery the Hamas terrorists took on their mobile phones, their head cams, and then it was all collated. And myself personally, I've seen nothing like this. It was absolutely horrendous. And in the room, there was probably about 18 people from this delegation. The room fell silent, and there's that saying of silence, it was deafening. And you could feel the pressure in the room, and nobody spoke. And these are very experienced soldiers, from generals, brigadier generals, to Delta Force, to the SAS. After this had finished, we all walked out. Nobody spoke. We were actually on the bus going back to another location when people started to open up. And looking round the room, I swear some people aged in that hour. You could just see their demeanor and how shocked everybody was. It was horrendous. We had a briefing on their standard operating procedures, and basically when they mounted their insurgent into Israel, they would fly over helicopters with loudspeakers, speaking in Arabic, telling the residents to move out of there. They would also use a device called a roof knocker, where it's a small device, it's harmless, and it lets off a large bang. And then they were dropping pamphlets written in Arabic and Hebrew, telling the Palestinians to move out of this area, to vacate, and they would give them routes to vacate and to safe areas. Now, the problem that they found when they first started to move in, they were rolling in very much like a conventional force, taking building by building. The first thing they found was nearly every house they came across had been rigged up with IEDs ready to go, and they ranged from homemade stuff to very professional and complex IEDs. And then the IDF started getting ambushed, and they couldn't work this out, what was happening. And then, from obvious reasons, they found out it was the tunnel systems. And as they were moving in, fighters were coming up and ambushing them and then disappearing. So within a very short period of time, they realized they had to fight this conflict above ground and below ground. So then they had to get a team of guys to go in to clear the tunnel systems, as well as clear above ground. And that in itself is very difficult in terms of command and control. And that's been the biggest problem, and that is why it's being drawn out, this conflict. And when they overlaid the mapping of the tunnels, it makes the London Underground look like something very simple. There is over 300 miles of tunnels ranging in different sizes and at different depths. Some of the deepest tunnels they found is 50 meters underground. And they will range from the main tunnel that you can drive a truck down, a large Humvee, and they interlink to branches. Now the branches come off, and then within the branches, there is sections come off there. And these are tunnels that will come up underneath a mosque, a hospital, a school, or a government building. They've also got these hatches where they run the length of the border where they mounted the attack from. Inside the tunnels, there is command rooms, there is prisons with metal barred cages in there. The infrastructure is fed by electricity, water, it has a sewerage system. It's very complex and very difficult, and strewn with IEDs and booby traps. The Hudson Institute in Washington, D.C. did a study, so this is independent of Israel. Now, when the Americans were fighting in Mosul, they had a kill rate of 1 to 68, which means one fighter is killed and 68 civilians are killed. In Mosul, it was 1 to 45, and the Hudson Institute claims that it's 1 to 1 to 1 to 1.4 in Israel. Israel is doing everything to minimize civilian and collateral damage. But they've been faced, as I said, as moving in, houses are rigged with explosives and you cannot send infantry troops in there to clear them. So they have to hit them with tanks to get the detonation going, which then you get secondary damage as well. And also on that point, remember there's 101 hostages still missing, so they have to go very carefully when they're moving through here. I don't think we've seen anything like this. The coordination of working underground, and they're not mapped. That's the first thing. Tunnels go left, right, further down in underground. It's cramped conditions, and then you have to coordinate with what's going on upstairs on the ground level with airstrikes and the buildings that they're having to clear. It's a complete nightmare, and now I have an understanding why it's taking so long to clear Gaza in the search for the hostages. When you consider when 9/11 happened, in America, there's a population of 330 million people. 3,000 people were killed, and that took America into the Second Gulf War and into Afghanistan. Israel, a population of 10 million, and 1,500 people were slaughtered in the most barbaric way imaginable. Israel was left with no choice. And I would suggest if it happened to any other country, their response would be a lot harsher than Israel's. It will carry on. The first thing that must happen is the tunnels will have to be cleared, so they know that there's no hostages or like body recovery, and then the tunnels have to be destroyed, and then they're going to have to look at their rebuild plan for Gaza, and then arrest and capture as many Hamas fighters as possible, and maybe, hopefully give the Palestinians their country back and not be run by proxies of Iran. Yeah, no, they're surrounded by people who do not want a state of Israel. And one of the suggestions that was mentioned on every meeting from when we met the general who's in charge on the ground right up to Netanyahu was to be transparent and get journalists embedded with the IDF so everything is transparent. We did suggest that things would be said that they may not like, but they have to be transparent and let the world see what is actually going on. Because there is a lot of misinformation being spread, and we know it's coming from Iran and bot farms, but it's the understanding of the situation of Israel